Hello everyone, Chris Peterson here, bringing you yet another audio commentary. This is going to be for round 3 of the 2012 Salute to Bobby Fischer tournament that I attended early May. And this one is going to be exciting because, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to be playing against a Grandmaster. That's right. So me versus Grandmaster Tejas Bakre of India. Probably totally butchered his name, but whatever. So Grandmaster Bakre, I'll just call him Bakre, I guess, or I'll just call him GM or Grandmaster. I don't know, something. And so his FIDE rating is 2482 going into this tournament, which puts his USCF rating at 2582. Basically 600 and something, 650 points higher than my rating, basically. And so that gives me like an abysmal chance to win or draw this game. And the thing is with Jack War and Kevin Seidler drawing in round 2, it left only 2 people with 2 points, me and the Grandmaster. And I was going to have to play him in the third round, but and Brian and Ted Doricos wanted to blitz all night in my hotel room. Knowing the mountain that I had to climb in the morning against the Grandmaster, I wanted to get to bed early. And unfortunately, at 3 a.m., Brian's development nightmares that I talked about in the previous video ended up waking me up, and he left the room to go look over his round 2 game. And I guess he was like up all night, like looking at the game, trying to find ways to exploit my my supposedly unsound sacrifices. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the game against the Grandmaster. So I'm playing white, Chris Peterson, and black is Grandmaster Tejas Bakre, 2582. So I chatted with Tejas before the game. I told him that I had never played a GM in an over-the-board tournament game, and I was excited to get my feet wet with it. Although I had drawn Alex Fishbein in a simul, this game against the Grandmaster would be completely different. So I started up again with e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, bishop g5, e6, f4, and bishop e7. So far, this game has pretty much just followed my game against the Grandmaster Fishbein from the simul at the Denver Chess Club. I couldn't remember the exact move order that I had played against Fishbein, and talked myself out of playing Queen d2, which would have followed the game. I was afraid that the Grandmaster I was playing now would play knight takes d4, followed by Queen b6, pretty much forcing the queens to be traded off. And although this would be good for me, I saw him beat his last 2 opponents very handedly in endgames, so I didn't really want to play into his strength necessarily. So I just played knight to b3. Then he played a6, queen f3. I'm going to run through the... I guess I should have warned you guys before, but I'm going to run through the opening, like these first few moves of the opening fairly quickly, because it's actually all theory that could be looked up. Of course, I didn't know at the time that I was playing book moves. I was just trying to play moves that were logical and avoided, tactical shots and stuff like that. So knight b3, a6, queen f3, h6, bishop h4, g5, f takes g5, knight e5, queen e2, knight f d7, castles queenside, h takes g5, bishop f2, b5, queen d2, and I mean, as far as I can tell, this is all these are all book moves. I mean, obviously during the game I had no clue when or if we had left book. I mean, I'm not up to date on theory in any opening, and I only know modern theory in a couple of mainline openings, like the Dragon and stuff like that. And I was expecting to be just blown out of the water theoretically, but Fritz 13 thinks I'm holding my own. So 15, Bishop B7, Queen D4. And with pressure mounting on my E4 pawn and the threat of B4, Queen D4, with the threat of B4, Queen D4 was just a logical move defending both. So then 16, Queen C7, King B1, Rook C8, Bishop to E2, Knight to F6. So this move puts more pressure on the E4 pawn. Also, it sets up a simple tactic that is not easy to defend. So here, if I try Bishop G3, Black can simply play Knight takes E4. And after Knight takes E4, Queen takes C2, check, King A1, Queen takes E4. So he would just take my only center pawn, and I'm just screwed. So, and even though the E pawn is kind of isolated, it is holding back Black's pieces in his center right now. So I need that pawn. So instead, I just played 19, Rook to D2. And now, now the Grandmaster played a move that makes very little sense to me over the board. The only thing that I could think of is he wanted to unpin his knights from his rook on H8. He played the move Rook to H7. Now I thought that 19, Knight C6, Queen E3, B4, Knight A4 would cause the defenses around my king to just be peeled away. But I guess not. Well, I mean they would be, but I guess the Grandmaster had a different plan, and it involved moving the knight. So he wanted to get his rook to a safer square, which H7 kind of is. So then 20, Bishop G3. So after 19, Rook H7, Bishop G3, Knight F to D7. So here, I was thinking 20, Knight C4, Bishop takes C4, Queen takes C4, Queen B6, Queen C6, Queen takes C6 check, Rook takes C6, and this endgame would be just better for Black. And I spent a lot of time trying to avoid trades, and this would practically force all those trades to happen. But instead of 20 Knight C4, he played 20 Knight F to D7. So then I played 21 Rook H to D1, Bishop C6. So Bishop C6 is an odd-looking move, but it does prepare the A5 push. And after Rook to B8, A5, followed by A4 or B4, I mean, it could just be very dangerous and also very bad for White. My knights are getting kicked around, and they really don't have... They're basically running out of squares, so I'd have to be extremely careful with where I place my pieces if that line were to come to fruition. So I was a little scared, but I knew he couldn't play it right away because the pawn on B5... I'm sorry, something's not defended. Yeah, the pawn on B5 is not quite defended yet. So I just played H3, 22 H3. And I wanted to make sure my bishop was free to move around. It might have to go back to F2 or trade for a knight on E5. And I didn't want his rook to swoop down and take the H2 pawn if I had left it there. So 22, move 22, he played rook to B8. And now I played queen to B4. And this move is basically, it's just designed to prevent A5. And it also builds the pressure on D6. Even though there's the same number of pieces attacking D6, I no longer have to sacrifice my queen to break through there. So now he played bishop to a8, and the GM has let his advantage slip away. I mean, I use the term advantage loosely. He was never really in a commanding position in this opening. It just kind of felt that way because my pawn structure was slightly worse. But these positions are hard to play for both sides, and one small mistake can just open up the tactical floodgates. And he was moving quickly relative to me. He had used about 5 minutes on this move. But I had recently told one of my chess students that getting better at chess has a lot to do with figuring out how to avoid calculating. I know when I try to calculate complex tactical lines, it is difficult to keep track of them, all. So instead, I try to find strong, tactically motivated reasons why a particular line is good or bad, before deciding to calculate it. I saw the possibility of 23 pawn to d5, but I also knew that it would explode the center, leaving black extremely exposed. Therefore, it was not necessary to calculate the entire line. I did have to make sure my queen wasn't getting trapped with moves like bishop c5, though. So if instead of 23 bishop to a8, the Grandmaster tried pawn to d5, inviting a massive opening of the lines in the center, this is just one example of how those tactical floodgates can open. Because I would play queen to d4, and then if he tried pawn to b4, kicking my knight, I could actually just play knight to d5. And if he plays e takes d5, e takes d5, bishop to a8, bishop to g4, bishop d6, bishop takes d7 check, knight takes d7, queen e4 check, wins the rook. But, instead, he played 23 bishop to a8, and that allows me a different shot. So now that my rooks are doubled, I have this tremendous amount of pressure on d6, and I decided now was the right time to break through. So I played 24 rook takes d6. And this is actually the only good move in the position. It does give up an exchange right off the bat, but there are many positional gains. First, it undermines black's control over the dark squares around his king, potentially allowing me to attack. Second, it deflects the plans of continuing an attack. Having trouble talking. Second, it deflects his plans of continuing to attack me on the queen side by focusing the attention of the tactics on the center around his king. Third, technically, I only go down 1 point in material exchange for a pawn. And finally, I'm sacrificing an exchange against a Grandmaster, so that's always something awesome to do. So he played 24 bishop takes d6. And Fritz 13 actually recommends declining the sacrifice. It recommends knight to c6, queen a3, queen c8, e5, b4, bishop takes a6, bishop b7, bishop takes b7, queen takes b7, queen a4, bishop takes d6, rook takes d6, b takes c3, rook takes c6. And though not all of these moves are forced necessarily, and I certainly did not calculate all this out during the game, but this position is equal according to Fritz. And while it is going to have white is going to have complete dominance over the dark squares around the black king, especially if white can finagle his bishop into d6 or f6. On top of that, all of white's pieces are actively posted. And already ideas of moves like, knight c5 are looking interesting and menacing for sure. And especially once the mate on b2 is resolved. So he took the exchange with bishop takes d6, and then I played a rook takes d6, and then he played a rook to b6. And when playing someone higher rated, it is best to try and reach tactical positions like these. This is a great example of why GM Bakre is 654 points higher rated than me, but he has just made a tactical mistake. Well, let me rephrase that sentence. It might have come out a little wrong. This is a great example why that you want to get to tactical positions against higher rated players. Grandmaster Bakre is 654 points higher rated than me, but he just made a tactical mistake. Anyone is capable of blundering in confusing tactical positions. It is less likely that people will blunder when the positions are simplified through trading. I have 3 strategies when I play chess. First, avoid trades. This is because a habit of trading pieces forms. Okay, so sorry, I just totally forgot what I was saying. I have 3 strategies when I play chess. First, avoid trades. This is because a habit of trading pieces off forms. The opportunity to use those pieces to get to know them and improve understanding is lost. This is why I have become better at endgames. I have an appreciation of how the pieces move around and just how they move around the board. Second, due to the fallibility of humans, play tactically. Everyone can blunder. Everyone can find brilliant tactical shots. Finally, and this is more technical, avoid being the player to initiate the trades. The first player to capture is losing tempi and generally pulling an opponent's piece to a better square. So instead of rook b6, which actually turns out to be a blunder, as I was saying, he could have played queen a7, and then rook to d1, knight to c6, bishop takes b8, queen takes b8, queen d6, and now white has a material advantage and can enjoy a comfortable endgame. And this line is not good for black, but the alternative is much worse. So I played 26 rook takes d7. So after I played this move, I couldn't help but think how many players in Colorado would make my 24th and 26th move. They are absolutely insane moves to play against a player of Grandmaster Bakre's caliber. I have a nasty habit of smiling when I make pretty combinations or sacrifices, mostly because I think when people look at my board, they think I'm out of my mind. So he takes on d7 pretty quickly. King takes d7. If he tries queen takes d7, I'm just going to play bishop takes e5, and black's pieces are in disarray, while white has a nice combination and a coordination, and a simple plan of bringing the knights in to wreak havoc. So after king takes d7, I played queen takes d4 check, queen d6, and then bishop takes e5. So I would strongly recommend when you get to these really tactical positions, if you have the time, look at every possible legal move in these positions, because you never know when some kind of crazy tactic is going to just pop out of the woodwork and allow you to cream your opponent. And here I missed a huge opportunity to continue with the attack. I should have played 28 knight d5. If he plays e takes d5, bishop takes e5. E takes d5, then bishop takes knight on e5. Queen c6, just one possibility. Bishop g4 check, king e8, knight a5, queen g6, bishop f5, queen h5, bishop takes h7. And black's pieces are so disorganized that white can just pick them off nonchalantly. So every variation here just has white sneaking his way into black's position. And it's just a pretty sacrifice to make. So I could have, in 2 moves, sacked both my rooks. So, what was it? Move 24 and move 26. So move 24, I sack my first rook. Move 26, I sack my second rook. And then, on move 28, I could have sacked a knight. So I could have just, like, triple whammied the Grandmaster into sacrificial submission. So, and that would have been a wicked way to have the game go on. So instead, I played kind of the pathetic 28 bishop takes e5. Then he played 28 queen takes d4, and then knight takes d4. So now that all the crazy, endings to, now, I mean, after all those crazy tactics were happening, now we have this crazy endgame. And a crazy endgame to have against a high-rated Grandmaster. I mean, a quick material count shows that I have 3 pieces, 2 knights and a bishop, plus a pawn, against 2 rooks, which is technically even, assuming minor pieces are 3 points and not 3.25. I mean, I felt that I had a strong advantage here, but I was unsure of a plan to follow, and I refused to offer draws unless there was an obvious perpetual or the game is just absolutely unwinnable for either side. So he played king to e7, then I played a4, and I wanted to get my knight on c3 more active, and I thought if I could force the GM to attack the knight with a move like b4, then I could get the knight to a better square via a4. So he plays f6. So if he would have played b4, I would have just played a5, then rook b7, knight a4, f6, and then bishop g3, and my pieces are starting to coordinate much better. So after 30 a4, he played f6, right, so 30 f6, and then I played bishop g3. Then he played b takes a4, and then I played bishop f2. And I'm threatening a nasty discovery on his rook. But I should not play knight takes a4 because that would lose a piece to rook to b4. And now the Grandmaster found the best move. He played 32 rook b8. And here, the Grandmaster offered me a draw. And I thought about it for about 30 seconds, and I agreed to the draw. And there were a couple of reasons I accepted. I mean, his rating is over 600 points higher than mine, so I should gain a lot of points for that. I didn't want to decline the draw offer and offend him, as he was basically doing a favor to the tournament directors for playing in the tournament in the first place. And then also, like, if you decline a draw against a Grandmaster, they go into, like, hyperdrive, or at least I assume they do, and then they just, like, go crazy and beat you anyway. And then also on top of that, if by chance I lost this game after declining the draw, basically I would just be out of the money. Like, there's no under 1900 prize. There's no under 2000 prize, so I have to get first, second, or third, or whatever I needed to get into the prize money there. So, accepting the draw here, based on the position, is probably a mistake. Definitely a mistake. I mean, White has a pretty strong advantage here. The minor pieces are a lot better than the 2 rooks. But, psychologically and based on the tournament results and stuff, I mean, accepting the draw makes perfect sense. So, kind of a sad conclusion. I really wanted to see how this endgame would have played out. Basically, it's just going to amount to White trying to maneuver his pieces to strong squares, strong outposts or whatever for his knights, and then trying to pick off Black's pawns. Potentially, White could have 2 connected past queenside pawns. But, I mean, for the most part, I think a draw is it's it's a happy result for me. So that's it for round 3 of the Salute to Bobby Fischer chess tournament. Both me and the Grandmaster now have 2.5 points. Nobody else has 2.5, I don't believe, in round 3. So, or going into round 4. So the Grandmaster and I are poised to tie for first if we both win our last game, round 4 game. So, with that, I'll bid you guys goodbye. Please do whatever YouTube allows you to do, like comment, rate, thumbs up, whatever. And I'll catch you guys next time.